All right, so Ian, you can leave us the audience, you guys out there that hopefully like us, or at least you hate to watch us out there. You can leave us voice messages at anchor.fm/the CU podcast. You can leave us voice messages, and then we'll play them. Maybe every week, maybe every other week. We'll see how they slow down. But we got some to play here for you. The first one here is from let's see, Phil Bowser, not the Bowser.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Phil. Big fan of the podcast. Question for Pat is, what are your top 3 or so most challenging NES games that you have actually beaten and completed? And for Ian, a little bit different. What are 3 or so of your favorite original Game Boy titles? Thanks a lot, guys.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. Kirby's Pinball Land is absolutely at the top of my list. I love it. I have played that game during blackouts. I've played that game when I was sick. I've played that game traveling. I have played that game fairly consistently since it came out. I almost always have a copy of it. It's cheap, and it's just a really good time. Burger Time Deluxe is, I think, it's the best version of Burger Time, and it's absolutely perfect on the go. The levels are a little bit smaller. They're easier to manage. The AI is not ridiculous, and it looks really good for a Game Boy game. And then third, I'll say Castlevania Adventure 2, Belmont's Revenge. The first Castlevania Adventure is trash, and Castlevania Legends is not very good. But Belmont's Adventure is great. The level design is awesome. The graphics are good.
I never played the first one.
Graphics are good. Music is banging in Castlevania Adventure 2. So that's another good one. I could go on about Game Boy all day, but those off the top of my head are definitely some of my favorites.
Most challenging NES games, to me, it's going to come back to Ninja Gaiden. Jesus Christ, Ninja Gaiden. So it has to be ones I actually beat. Ninja Gaiden, probably used an emulator first time I beat it. I'm trying to think if I ever beat it without an emulator. I might have once.
Wait, did he say you had to have beaten them?
I think he said I had to have beaten them. Because I definitely, I beat Ninja Gaiden 3. I had to use save states. Otherwise, it's fucking impossible because of the lack of continues and everything with that. Top Secret Episode, I always say that was difficult. That's more about the mazes, but those mazes suck, especially when you're 8 years old, 9 years old. And then another difficult one. I'm going to say Zelda 2 is very challenging.
Zelda 2 is a very hard game, and then
combat.
The end of it is a grind because you want to get as many lives as you can when you're heading into
the temple, or whatever,
heading to that final palace. And yeah, it's just I love Zelda 2, but it's not a kind game.
4.5 stars you gave it, according to certain.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's not a real Zelda game. I think it's a fantastic game, but it is very, very difficult.
Hey, Pat and Ian. This is Brendan from over in Massachusetts. I tune in weekly, listen to your podcast, usually while I'm working. My question was for Ian. What's your favorite Riichi Mahjong game? And have you ever played Zhongbu, which is kind of like Riichi meets Arkanoid? And would you ever do an arcade-style Mahjong stream? Cheers, dudes.
I'm typing in this Zhongbu because that sounds very good. So my favorite Riichi Mahjong games. Okay, if you want to go like a more professional, proper Mahjong game, I really like the Kiwami 2DX on the PlayStation 2. Really good game with great AI, excellent presentation. We're talking about Mahjong here, so it's not like you need the graphical power of a modern system to do it. You can totally have some
trace those tiles.
You can totally have really good games on some of these older consoles. So that's one that I always lean on for the professional type of game. As far as the more cartoony or the cheesecakey strip Mahjong games, I think the best one. And I should state Kiwami 2DX is it's a 4-player Mahjong game. I really like the Super Real Mahjong is a series. It's on the PC Engine. It's on Japanese PCs. That's more of like a strip Mahjong game, and it's one-on-one, what they sometimes call battle Mahjong. So it fudges the rules a little bit. You're still making the same hands and stuff, but you're only against one opponent. The Super Real Mahjong Perfect Collection on Neo Geo Pocket Color is really good. One of the reasons I like it is it's one of the few Mahjong games that actually gives you difficulty options. A lot of the early battle Mahjong style games don't give you difficulty options, and because you're competing to see women in various states of undress, they make it really hard to grind through those games.
Oh, they make it hard.
Yes.
They make it very hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to have difficulty options in that one. It's a pretty decent game to learn on. But yeah, there are tons of good Mahjong games. Yeah, I would probably stream Mahjong again at some point. I had before. I probably will again in the future. I rarely feel comfortable streaming, so it's got to be the right time.
This is from. Oh, I won't tell you who it's from until the question comes in here.
My man just got back from pre-ordering the new Intellivision Amico. I got that thing, but now really I just call and let you know, Pat, I saw that PayPal just did a deal where they're going to start dealing cryptocurrency. So after your last podcast, your take on crypto, how do you feel about that now? You more optimistic or pessimistic? And how will crypto look in the gaming market? You see anything with that, with gambling or DLC? Love the podcast. Keep it up. G's up. You guys out.
So the name of this person. Well, excuse me. This is. I think they left the message, but Cryptic Crypto it was the message name on here. So yeah, because I trashed it like a couple weeks ago. Then like next day, PayPal says we're gonna accept Bitcoin. PayPal will accept dirty socks as money. They don't care because they're taking their percentage no matter what it is. So it's like it doesn't matter. You know, they'll accept whatever there. It's not them saying, oh, we think this is going to be stable or take off. It's just we know that people are going to be trading this form of currency. We're going to take our whatever 3%. That's what it is.
It's them saying we've gotten to the point where we can ensure that we get our money from this, so that's okay. But
sure,
I would not take that as necessarily as a sign of.
Acceptance.
It's not an endorsement.
No, yeah, exactly. It's not an endorsement. Like I would take crypto through my website. Like my web store has like Amazon payments, PayPal. There's a few others you can sign up for there. Yeah, I'll take it if I'm guaranteed that rate of return is not going to change the fucking second the payment goes through because it's so volatile. Bitcoin, like that's something I don't know how they're going to square because every day it bounces around. So all right, thanks for the question there. Let's see this one here.
How's it going, y'all? This is Nick from Virginia. This question is directed at Ian, but Pat, you can answer too if you are able to. Ian, I know you're a big psychedelic type guy, and I was just kind of curious what games you enjoy tripping to, if you have. I've really had a lot of fun with games like F-Zero and Tetris Effect. But yeah, just curious about what you like to trip to, if you have. Thanks for a great show, y'all. Take care and have a good one. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
It's a fun question. So I should state that I have not tripped in many years. I did a lot when I was younger and through into my 20s. It's not that I wouldn't now, but it's something that it's not like getting high or having a couple of beers. You got to set aside the hours for something like that. You know, rule of thumb, give yourself 5 hours with mushrooms, give yourself 8 to 12 with LSD.
Hey, mushrooms are legal now in what state passed that?
They're not legal, they're decriminalized.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying.
It's as good as legal.
You can get the kit and grow them at home and you're fine. But yeah, I mean, there are situations where I certainly would again. But yes, I definitely played lots of games while doing that. My whole thing when I was doing acid a lot was that I never gotten shit like some of my friends did because I didn't feel like needing. Everyone always felt like when you're on acid, you got to go out and find an adventure. It's like, no. The point of acid is it brings the adventure to you. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can sit at home and you're gonna have a wacky and good time. So yeah, a lot of times my friends and I would, go for a walk and then just come back and play games. So I have three very good specific game-related memories. One is I played Bust a Groove, and I got a perfect. I perfected the whole game. I didn't miss a single thing. I played through every character, beat Robo Z, got everything, and that's a rhythm game, so it was a lot of fun. The music was fun. The visuals were good for that. I really enjoyed it. The other is R-Type. The best I've ever been at R-Type was when I was on acid once, and I made it to the 7th level without losing a life. And then I lost all my lives on the 7th level. Never one credit completed that game. I'm bad at R-Type as much as I love it.
Everyone's bad at R-Type.
But that was a incredible run. And yeah, you just kind of get yourself in that mode where you're like, no, those bullets are real. If it hits that ship, I'm dead. And you just, you sell yourself on that. And you're like, all right, I cannot hit these bullets. You take it for real. And then the third was I was tripping with a buddy once. And this was when this was just after high school, but I was still living at home. We were in the basement, and we had like a basement room set up where my brother and I hung out, TV, game systems, stereo, etc. And we were on acid, and we were playing Mario 3. And my dad, who was a school teacher, got up and walked downstairs. It was like 4 a.m. But he had to get up early for school, and he was working out before going to school those days. And we're like, oh shit, we're right in the middle of this. And my dad comes downstairs and goes, oh, you guys just up drinking that Jolt Cola, playing video games? John's just like, nothing more wholesome than a game of Super Mario 3, Mr. Ferguson. And my dad's just like, all right, I'm gonna go work out. Like, it was just, John very much tried to play it cool at that point. We threw him pro wrestling after that, I remember. And like, he'd be like, ooh, good one. Oh, you just got up. I'm like, John, you don't need to like do the whole announcing thing. So yeah, those are three specific memories from that.
All right. Was there anything for me to answer that one or no?
No.
Okay.
My first question is for Ian. Ian, how have you been able to deal with Pat talking in third person for over 10 years and referring to regular math as Pat math? Also, second question, Pat, how have you been able to talk in third person and refer to math as Pat math? Thanks, guys. Love the podcast. Also, extra napkins is amazing.
Thank you.
I don't think Pat appreciates that, Joey. Pat doesn't appreciate you criticizing how Pat speaks about Pat math and how Pat does things like that.
I appreciate it. I honestly, you just blank it out at some point. You know, the first.
I don't think Pat does it that often, to be honest.
You do. You
Pat
definitely do.
I don't think Pat does it.
I think we can go to the listeners here, and I think they can definitely say yes.
Pat doesn't agree with that at all.
Pat does not agree with that at all. No, honestly, it's one of those things that initially I was like, well, that's a strange thing to do. But then you get used to it. It's like, I don't know. What? It's like when you get married and you get used to, your spouse's weird tics.
One thing I've learned to love about Ian is that he doesn't have to understand the machinations of my mind. He just has to roll with it. And eventually he comes along or he doesn't. And it really depends on what it is. But overall, it makes for a more entertaining podcast. But I'm not going to pull the curtain back. But, there's a method to Pat's madness, we'll just say. And Pat math is one of those things. There. All right, next one.
Hey, Pat and Ian, this is Clay, although Ian probably knows me from Twitter as Terminally Nerdy.
I do.
Just wanted to say,
hello.
I really appreciate all the things that you guys have done. I love your podcast, been listening for, like 2 years. It is my source of news and entertainment. Thank you for doing this during the quarantine. Love you guys. Keep up the great work. And Ian, I hope you've been enjoying Warsim since you seemed to like my video and it made you buy the game. Peace.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Warsim is great. I've talked about it before on here. I found it through a tweet that Clay did, Terminally Nerdy. Warsim is the all text based kingdom builder game, basically, that just keeps getting updates over and over and over
It's
again.
getting what?
Updates, yes. So it's a really good game. It's often on sale. It's worth, I think, the $5 even when it's not on sale. Check out Warsim on Steam. That's not a plug for Clay. Clay didn't make the game, but check out Clay too, Terminally Nerdy. He's a nice guy.
He just gave us a hand job, so check him out. All right.
A handy.
Hey guys, I love your show. I'm calling you from up in Canada. And
Canada.
I just want to say I've been watching a lot your coverage of the new Amico in television thing.
The new, it's not out yet.
And I was just watching a different podcast, no offense, with Victor Lucas and Tommy Tallarico. And a lot of new developments or updates of, the just the dodging of questions and everything that Tommy has about this system is just amazing on this this little broadcast. And I sent you a link, Pat, on your Twitter, so please check that and put it on your next CU podcast. All right, thanks guys.
If I had to try to keep track of all the Tommy Tallarico podcasts that he's done, I would be dead by now, since he's done probably literally hundreds at this point. And I've been making it like he's done probably a couple hundred of podcast appearances. So that's all I'm going to say. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah,
that someone running a company with a multi-million-dollar investment think it's worth his time and effort to go out and talk to every YouTuber that'll book him for an interview. All right, this is from Jedediah.
Hey Pat and Ian, this is Jedediah calling with a quick question and a comment. My question is, what is your favorite Japanese KitKat bar variant? And if it's not my favorite flavor, what's it like to be so wrong? My comment for you is about how I went online to the Square Enix website and bought a brand new sealed PS1 game and got it graded by WANA. I ended up selling it for a handsome little profit, and I think that's an interesting little thing. Something that's readily available was being able to be bought and purchased by these people that don't know what they're looking at. It reminds me of the Spider-Man games you were commenting on, but it's even more so destructive than that to our hobby because they're collecting something completely different. They're coveting the plastic, like you said. I don't want people to be going out and flipping these or trying to scalp them, but I think it's something that should be known.
Oh, sure, Jed. I mean, sorry. We brought that up before. What was the first thing he said? Oh, the only Japanese KitKat flavor I know, because someone gave them to me one time in a cool little tin. I was actually Karen, I believe, writing on the books. She gave me the green tea KitKats, which are delicious.
The green tea ones are really good.
It's the only thing I've ever had, though.
I had
I'm starving.
That's the thing. There's lots of different varieties of KitKats.
Why are we asked out in the U.S. with these?
But I rarely see them. Whenever I go to like Mitsuwa or a place like that would carry them, they're usually sold out. However, I did have I can't remember what it was. It was like a strawberry cream one that was a Valentine's Day one year that was really good. And I really want to try, and I don't know, it might be too late. They did apple pie KitKats this year, and those were actually released in the U.S., and I think that has the potential to be very tasty. As far as the WADA thing, yeah, it's weird. A lot, and it's just a lot of people don't know about. First, the Square thing. I think we even talked about that before in here.
We brought that up that they were selling some
stuff. You can still buy some of the. So when Square merged with Square Enix, there's a run of the like PlayStation Final Fantasy games, for instance, that you could get direct from Square Enix that have the new Square Enix logo on them. They're different from other PlayStation games because they're actually silver on the bottom. And I remember the first time I saw them thinking they were bootleg because I'm like, why are they not?
Sure.
Why are they not the black bottom discs? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who they get swept up in this sort of collecting and marketing thing, and they don't realize that they either blinded by, like you said, the plastic on the outside of it, or they don't realize that they can do this themselves for just for a fraction of the cost.
Sure, they're
you can literally do what he just did.
They're uneducated. They're buying things on WADA that are still available on eBay, even sealed sometimes, and for a fraction of the cost. They're uneducated. They're assuming it's another type of market when it's not. Like, oh, it's on Heritage, it must be rare. It's sealed. No, they don't know. All right.
Hey, Pat and Ian, Joey Freeze here.
Joey Freeze.
I used to listen to you guys on the weekends after my work week, and I used to start my work days listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, which, as you can imagine, is just him yelling and screaming about how bad modern wrestling is. And I said, you know what? That's probably not the best idea. Not that you guys are Bob Ross or anything, but compared to him, you are. I work at Steinway Pianos in Queens.
Oh,
and,
nice.
It's a bit more mellow, so thanks for that. And stay frosty.
Thanks, Joey. Joey Freeze has done. He's done music for AVGN. He's done piano music, obviously.
I've talked to him a little bit online. I met him at one of the conventions. Nice guy.
Working at a piano shop is probably like the most chill job ever, because who's going to come in looking to buy a piano? Just like the nicest piano. I want to play your piano. I want a mini grand. I think my grandfather his player piano was a Steinway, I believe. Anyway, what was he saying about
I was just talking about how he switched Jim Cornette.
Jim Cornette.
For Jim Cornette.
Jim Cornette is raucous. He's obviously very knowledgeable. He's been in the business for like 35 years, since he was small. He's also somewhat insane, and he's a hypocrite. His big thing is that he said he hates modern wrestling. He hates the Young Bucks. He hates Kenny Omega. He hates how the business has quote unquote been exposed, when the business has been exposed since the early 90s. It's been exposed since the Vince McMahon trials, and people come out. And
it's been exposed ever since. It's not a new thing.
Ever since they were legally forced to change it to being sports entertainment, because otherwise they couldn't get commissioned in certain states to have their events, the WWF at the time. And he talks about how, these people aren't taking it seriously. They're treating it like it's a video game and things like that. I'm like, you think it was treated seriously in the mid-90s in WWF, when you had the Goon, and you had a guy who was a plumber, and you had Duke the Dumpster Drosy.
Yeah.
And you had one of the most famous wrestlers is a fucking undead wizard.
Isaac Yankem, DDS.
You have the Undertaker, who's like a magical creature. Like, what, did you ignore these things? Like, wrestling was always over the top and, parody of characters, and it was never like totally it's like sports. For that, you only have to go back to even, I'd say, Japan, but even Japan, they always had over the top characters that were based upon their superhero characters and things like that. So even there, like Tiger Mask stuff, so even there, it was never totally like, we're treating this like a serious sport. That's like, that almost never existed.
No, that is definitely a person who is getting old looking back on the glory days with very, very selective lenses.
And in this day and age,
there's almost nothing that drives me crazier than that.
I'm not saying there's not a market for treating pro wrestling as a serious sport. In Japan, they mostly still do that. That doesn't mean that would translate to an audience in 2020, this day and age.
Sure.
With social media and everything, everyone knows that it's entertainment. So I don't know how far you'd go. They tried it with the NWA thing, bring it back. They did like the studio thing setting, which is interesting, like how they did like in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So like, I'm not saying it, but for a large audience, you can't get away with that anymore. You can't. You just can't. You just can't get away. Wrestling audiences are either children or like 40 plus at this point. Like, that's because the people that liked it when they were kids. Like, it's different now. Like, it's totally different than how it used to be, where it's like, you had the old women like wanting to stab people with screwdrivers in the 80s, like try to stab Harley Race, things like that. I don't think we're ever going to see that again, where like there'll be almost near riots breaking out because they think it's actually real, and how dare you hit that guy with a chair.
Right.
I don't think we're going to, and probably for the better, we're not going to see that anymore.
No, definitely right? For the better.
Like that's, people are foaming at the mouth, but you want people to think it's actually real? Like, you actually want that again? You really don't want that.
No.
I don't think you really want that anymore. Time for one more. We'll do one last here.
Hey, y'all. I just got to say, I love the show. It's always like a highlight of my week listening in to the new episode. And also, Pat, your luscious mane is currently the inspiration for how I'm growing my hair out.
Oh.
Now, I remember a few weeks ago, Ian offhandedly mentioning Ian Ferguson Smash Bros. So I'm curious, what would your core roster be for both Ian Ferguson Smash Bros. And Pat Contry Smash Bros.?
I always feel like that should be its own topic. I feel like we should save that for its own topic.
I feel like we should save that because thank you for the question. I have answers for that, but I feel like that is a good a good poll topic.
We're gonna say, I'm sorry, CJ. That's a great. That
we
could be its
will
own
get
topic.
to that.
I'm gonna
get to that.
I'm gonna highlight that. Wait, what would our personal Smash Brothers rosters be?
Yeah,
that could be entertaining. Because now, we talked about maybe Ian's as being Namco characters, but that could be entertaining. So, but thanks so much for the questions and comments about my hair and complaining about Pat Math. It's been great. Remember, go to anchor.fm/the CU podcast if you want to hear us ramble. Or you can subscribe on YouTube as well. There's a link somewhere for that if you want to get some early segments. Or our Patreon is patreon.com/CU podcast there.